one thing this pandemic has taught us, it is that no one is safe until everyone is safe. But I believe that we have the capacity, and I believe we have the means. What is lacking is the political will. For once, we should not be finger pointing at each other. We should be trying to find a solution for this. We should be giving hope.
What do you think the Olympics, and this Olympics in particular, should be about?
Olympics symbolizes humanity coming together. I would call upon all to come together, celebrate humanity, the goodness of humanity. When we talk about gender parity, we are talking about our sisters, our mothers. 135.6 years to achieve gender parity is unacceptable.
Are you still hopeful that we can reach that target?
I'm very hopeful. I have every trust in the goodness of humanity.
From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is The Hub with Wang Guan.
Hello and welcome to The Hub. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. The President of the United Nations General Assembly, Abdulla Shahid, is in China for a 4-day visit. It is his first trip to China since elected president of the UN's main policy-making body. The UN General Assembly represents 193 member states and offers a unique platform for multilateralism. Why is President Shahid visiting China now, and what issues have been talked about during his China trip? We're very honored today to have His Excellency President Abdulla Shahid on our show today. President Shahid, welcome to The Hub on CGTN. How are you? How's your trip to China so far?
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here in China during this visit. Of course, I've been in China many times before in different capacities as foreign minister, as Speaker of the Parliament of Maldives. But this is the first time I'm visiting here at the invitation of the leadership of China as President of the United Nations General Assembly. It's great to be here.
Again, welcome, sir. Let's begin by talking about COVID. According to Bloomberg's Global Vaccine Tracker, countries and regions with the highest incomes are getting vaccinated more than 10 times faster than those with the lowest incomes. What do you think can the United Nations General Assembly do to bridge this vaccination gap?
I came to the presidency of the General Assembly promising a presidency of hope. My presidency was based on 5 rays of hope, and the first ray of hope, or the first priority I was concentrating on, is on recovering from COVID-19. And I believe that on the recovery phase of COVID-19, vaccine is the alternative. We have been able to find a vaccine within such a short period of time. It's even good to call it a miracle vaccine. But you're right, certain parts of the world, we are seeing only 2 to 3% of the population being vaccinated, especially in the LDCs, in Africa and many other parts of the world. But in some countries, they are already starting to have the booster jab. If one thing this pandemic has taught us, it is that no one is safe until everyone is safe. So it is unacceptable that we are unable to provide vaccines to those countries who have not been able to get it yet. But I believe that we have the capacity. I believe we have the means. What is lacking is the political will. At the United Nations, I'm going to use my convening power to get the membership together. On January 13th, I'm convening a high-level meeting to address the vaccine gap. I'm inviting all countries to come together. I'm also inviting vaccine producers to come attend this event. For once, we should not be finger pointing at each other. We should be trying to find a solution for this. We should be giving hope for the people. of the world who require this vaccine. And I'm very hopeful that we will be able to achieve vaccine to all by end of 2022.
No one is safe until and unless everyone's safe. I guess many experts would agree with you over there. President Shahid, the WHO has set a global target of 70% of the total population of the world to be vaccinated by mid-2022. But to reach that goal, like you said, there needs to be more equitable vaccination, worldwide, globally. What do you plan to do currently, given the fact that only a little over half of the world's population are vaccinated currently? Are you still hopeful that we can reach that target?
I'm very hopeful. I have every trust in the goodness of humanity. And that is why I call my presidency a presidency of hope. I believe that we collectively, the United Nations is all about we the peoples. And it is the only forum where the 193 countries come together, and collectively we would be able to find a way out of this pandemic that is possible, that is workable, and it is achievable.
President Shahid, the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics are around the corner, as you know. What are your expectations for these games?
Well, I understand that this is going to be the first time Olympic Games are going to be held with renewable energy and green technology. It showcases the technology and scientific knowledge that humanity has been able to achieve. It showcases the best of China. It showcases the best of humanity. In the General Assembly next week, I will be convening. The General Assembly will sit to pass the Olympic Truce Resolution sponsored by China and many other countries. I have every confidence that this Olympics is going to be very, very successful.
We know that anticipation is very high surrounding the Olympics. A lot of excitement over there, but let's face it, there has been some politicians making noises surrounding these games. How do you look at that? What do you think the Olympics, and this Olympics in particular, should be about?
Olympics symbolizes humanity coming together. It symbolizes peace. It symbolizes sustainable development. It symbolizes good health and prosperity. The Olympic truce is all about it. And I would call upon all to come together, celebrate humanity, the goodness of humanity.
Let's talk about gender equality, something that you have been very attached to. On Twitter, you called for an end to violence against women worldwide. You met with victims of human trafficking not so long ago, since elected president of UNGA. Why is this issue so important to you?
According to current estimates, it would take 135.6 years to reach gender parity. When we talk about gender parity, we are talking about our sisters, our mothers. They are part of us. We need to give the respect they deserve to them. The women, half the population of the world, needs to be given the opportunity to sit around the table in decision making. They need to be respected. They need to be given the opportunity that they so fully deserve. 135.6 years to achieve gender parity is unacceptable. During my travels, I have been meeting women and girls, trying to understand the challenges that they are facing. I met women heads of state and heads of government who attended the United Nations High-Level Week this year. I also met the foreign ministers, women foreign ministers in Belgrade, when we gathered there to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the non-aligned movement. I met the scientists, women scientists in Glasgow. I met brave, heroic women who worked at the front line here in China. I met them yesterday. The message I'm getting from them is the same. The challenges that they face, the recognition they have not been accorded. But I'm determined to make sure to work, to use my good office as the President of the General Assembly to call for this recognition to be accorded. I want to work with everyone to make sure that women are given an equal opportunity as any men. Their work should be recognized, and this I'm going to continue to work. My office at the United Nations is gender balanced. I have, in fact, more women at senior cabinet level at the United Nations. I want every leader to make the pledge to be a gender champion.
President Shahid, we understand that you had a video call with All China Women's Federation during your trip to China. How do you look at the status of women, girls in China nowadays?
I understand that under the leadership of President Xi, the status of women have improved immensely. The Beijing Declaration, which was founded here in China, which the world over, all the membership of the United Nations gave their commitment to, is founded here in China. I understood from the brave women and brave nurses, doctors who fought the virus at the epicenter, the sacrifices they made, and the determination, the heroism of them. And they represent the best of humanity. And I salute them for their work.
Let's talk about sustainable development, an issue at the center of the United Nations General Assembly's targets goals. In September, addressing the UNGA, Chinese President Xi Jinping proposed a global development initiative calling for a more robust, greener, and more balanced global growth. How do you see this proposal and its prospect?
I had the privilege of presiding over the session when President Xi addressed the General Assembly. And therefore, I heard from firsthand President Xi's announcement. And I think it's an excellent announcement. What has happened with this pandemic is that when we launched ourselves in 2020 to the decade of action to achieve the 2030 agenda, to achieve the SDGs by 2030, the pandemic hit us. And the meager resources that many of the LDCs, small island developing states, and the landlocked states have allocated to achieve the SDGs had to be rechanneled to confronting the pandemic. So the SDGs are not looking as achievable. But we need new initiatives. We need to make sure that we turn this around from a decade of action to a decade of recovery. We have the LDC Plus 5 conference coming up. I hope China will show its leadership once again at the LDC Plus 5 conference.
President Shahid, let's move on and talk about China and the United Nations. This year marks the 50th anniversary of People's Republic of China's membership back at the United Nations. What do you think are China's major contributions to the United Nations system?
Well, I congratulate China for the resumption of its lawful seat, the 50th anniversary. It's remarkable. Within these 50 years, China has shown that China is fully committed to multilateralism. As a permanent member of the Security Council, it has continued to play a very important role in the maintenance of international peace and security. Today, China contributes over 50,000 personnel to international peacekeeping operations It is the second largest contributor in terms of finance to international peacekeeping operations of the United Nations. It is also the second largest contributor to the UN budget, therefore really showcases the commitment of China to multilateralism. And I commend Chinese leadership for this commitment.
Mr. President, talking about the role of the United Nations, right after you became UNGA president, you said during an interview with UN media platforms that you wanted to bring unity and cohesion. But many international relations experts would say that at the end of the day, it is nation states, their national interests and power politics that shape international relations more so than organizations such as the United Nations. Do you see some truth to that assessment?
Well, what I see in today's interrelated world is that be it climate change, be it the pandemic, be it poverty, in all this there is a very clear message that no one is safe until everyone is safe. And that can be obtained, that can be achieved only through multilateralism and through unity. Look at climate change. In the 1980s, the small island developing states started talking about sea level rise. The narrative at that time was that, okay, these small island states will be inundated by the sea, the coastal low-lying areas will be inundated, people will move to high ground and they will survive. No, the message was not clearly received by people. What we are seeing today is that it's not only the small island states that are going to suffer or suffering. We have increased storms, we have forest fires raging, we have flooding taking place all over the world, we have deserts expanding, glaciers melting. So whether you're on high ground or at the sea level, as small island states, everyone is suffering. We can survive only together. So be it the pandemic, the fight against poverty, or nuclear war, we will survive only together. If divided, we will destroy ourselves. So United Nations is the place where we will be able to come together. I call for unity, I call for solidarity, I call for people to come together with hope that a better tomorrow is achievable if we come together. And that is what my presidency, the presidency of hope.
President, you talk about climate change. In 2014, China declared war on pollution during a government work report. From your perspective, from where you are now, how do you think China has fared so far?
I think China has achieved a lot, and Chinese achievement should be taken as a contribution to international environment protection as well, because the air we breathe is not only restricted to Chinese border. So when China cleans up the pollution, it helps clean up the rest of the world as well. And I commend Chinese people and Chinese leadership for the achievements you have made.
And then talking about climate change, some scientists believe that the recently concluded COP26 has closed the gap, but it has not solved the problems. Some of them are dissatisfied with the lack of stronger commitment to reduce emissions. How do you assess the final result reached at the COP26?
I went to the Glasgow conference, COP26, after convening at the United Nations on October 26, a high-level meeting attended by high-level delegations from all the 193 countries. The idea was to carry a message of hope to Glasgow with me. And that is the message I took to the opening of COP26. I should say that Glasgow was not going to solve the entire climate-related issues. But the achievement of Glasgow is that we have been able to keep the 1.5 degrees alive. We have been able to come to an agreement on forestry. We have been able to get many countries to declare ambitious NDCs, which were not forthcoming before. We have been able to make sure that the climate dialogue, climate conversation moves on to the future with hope. And that should be regarded as a degree of success. But yes, coming from a small island state myself, I'm deeply disappointed.
And finally, in recent years, there have been many competing schools of thoughts on what the future of the world should look like. And China says it wants to build, a community of shared future. How do you look at China's initiative?
China's initiative goes hand in hand with the United Nations Charter. I believe the United Nations Charter, we start by saying the three words, we the peoples. We the peoples are determined to make sure that we do not go down the road we have gone in the past. And this is only possible by establishing unity, by establishing tolerance, by establishing solidarity, by coming together. And that is how I foresee the world for the future.
President Abdulla Shahid, President of the United Nations General Assembly, thank you so much for joining us today on CGTN.
Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure.
And that will do it for this edition of The Hub on CGTN. If you have any comments or suggestions on our show, feel free to contact me on social media. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining us. I'm Wang Guan. Bye.